Asynchronous JavaScript is one of the most useful and advanced topic of JavaScript, and also many developers confused a lot in that. But in this tutorial, we will see these topics in simple and easy way. Here is a timestamp so you can learn any topic you want to. But in my suggestion, watch all lessons in series. It will clear your doubts. So what is synchronous? Synchronous programming means our code runs line by line. Each line must be completed before moving to the next one. In simple words, synchronous programming is like following a recipe step by step. Each step must be completed before moving to the next one. If one step takes a long time, we have to wait until it's finished the execution and then we can continue. For example, we are preparing a cake for birthday. Now there are step-by-step process for that. Let's say first we mix ingredients, then we put it in oven for baking, and finally we can decorate the cake. We have to follow these steps line by line. We can't directly start decorating the cake without baking. We have to go to in steps 1, 2 and 3. So that's the synchronous example. Now you might guess what is asynchronous. In asynchronous, also our code runs line by line, but for moving forward, we don't need to wait to finish that task. We can start a task, and if it takes more time, then we can move to the next line. In simple words, asynchronous programming is like doing multiple things at once and not waiting for each line to finish before starting the next line. You can start a task, and while you will wait for it to complete, you can do something else. For example, you are preparing a cake and also you are watching this tutorial. So you put the cake in oven for baking, but this baking can take 10 to 15 minutes time. So at that time, you can do other things without just waiting for cake to bake. So you start watching this tutorial, and if you like this tutorial, then you can share this with your friends. So you can do multiple things in asynchronous programming without just waiting for one line to finish its task. So this is the fundamental difference between synchronous and asynchronous JavaScript. Let's see this with JavaScript example. So here is the 4 console line, and these lines are executed in the sequence, which means line by line. Now here you don't see the blocking way of asynchronous JavaScript, because any line of code is not taking more time to execute. So to display blocking way, I do something like this. I create a function at the top called bake the cake, and inside this function, I simply move this line too. Now to add blocking, I add here one empty for loop, which can take some time to execute. So let I equals to 0, I less than 1 with 9 zeros, and I++. And simply, we don't want to do anything inside this for loop. So I simply add open and close curly brackets. And here, after the line 1, we call this bake the cake function. Let's run this code. See, here after line 1, our code is waiting for this function to execute. And when it's done, then we get line 2, and then line 3 and line 4. So this is the synchronous code. Ideally, when this function taking time, our rest of the code should continue to execute. So here, at the place of this for loop, which is keeping our code busy, we can add another method for adding delay. So we add setTimeout. This method takes 2 arguments. First one is the function, and second one is the delay time. For example, we pass here 10,000 milliseconds, which is 10 seconds. Now at the first place, we simply pass function, and inside it, we move this line to console. So after 10 seconds, this function will console line 2. Now can you guess the output for this code? Let's see. See, first we get line 1. After that, in the background, our function is running, but that didn't stop our code there. Our code continued to run line 3, line 4, and when those 10 seconds will end, we get line 2 in the console. So this is the non-blocking or asynchronous code. Synchronous code wait for line 1 to complete execution, and asynchronous code wait for that line in the background and continue to work forward. By default, our JavaScript code is synchronous, but JavaScript provides some methods by which we can make our code asynchronous for doing specific types of work. First one is by using callback functions, and another method is by using promises. And we will see these topics one by one in the next video. And also, currently I am working on the ultimate Node.js course, in which you will learn Node.js from scratch to advanced level in very easy to explain language and with the real world projects. So in the description box, I added one Google form link. Enter your email, and first 1000 students will get this course completely free for the lifetime. So quickly register, link is down in the description box, and I will see you in the next video. So what is callback function? A callback function is a function that is passed as an argument to another function, and it is executed after a specific task is completed. Let me explain you using real world scenario. Suppose you are ordering sandwich from sandwich shop with your phone. So you call the sandwich shop and give your order. This is like starting an asynchronous task. Now the sandwich shop tell you it will take 20 minutes to prepare and deliver. This is the delay in the asynchronous task. So you hang up the call and do other things while waiting for the sandwich. This is the non-blocking behavior. Now when sandwich arrives, the delivery person rings your doorbell. And this is the callback function being executed when the task is complete. So a callback function is passed as an argument to another function, and it is executed after a specific task is completed. If you are working or learning JavaScript from long time, then I bet you already use callback function in your code. Just you don't know that function is called as callback function. For example, do you remember in the setTimeout function, at the first position we pass function which is executed after some delay? And you are correct. This function which we pass as an argument is called as callback function. Same callback function we pass in the setInterval function. Now let me give you another example. In almost all array methods, we pass callback functions, like in the forEach method, map method, filter method, etc. In all these methods, we pass callback function. Now let's create one function and pass it as callback function, because in the real world, we need to pass callback functions a lot. So let's see this with simple example. So first of all, here we create function called manage_student, and in this function we are going to fetching student data from database. So to simulate delay for data fetching, we add here again setTimeout function. And at the first position, what we pass? Right, not just function, we pass callback function. And at the second argument, we pass milliseconds, let's say 300 milliseconds. Now when we complete the data fetching, after 3 seconds, we want to run another function which will update that student's data. So for that, we create another function called updateStudent. And inside this function, we simply console.log updating the student data. Now we want to call this updateState function after the 3 seconds delay. So what we do here? Right, we can pass this updateStudent function as the callback function into the manage_student function. So first of all, we call manage_student function, and as a parameter, we pass this updateStudent function. Now same as other function arguments, we get this updateStudent function as the first parameter in this function. So we can call it anything like update function or anything, but most of the developers like to call this function as callback because we are going to run this function after a specific task. And simply inside the setTimeout, we call this callback function. Simple as that. Let's check the output. See, after 3 seconds, we get our console message. Now here, we can also define this callback function in arrow function syntax. So at the place of function keyword, we write const update student equals to, and we separate parentheses from curly brackets using this arrow. You know this, right? Now here we create this function separately, and because of that we have to give here name. But we can simplify this code by directly passing this function here. So at the place of this function name, we can cut and paste this piece of code here. And we simply remove this code. We don't need it. See, now our code looks simple, and this way is very useful in JavaScript because as you notice, we always pass callback functions like this. Instead of declaring it separately, we define directly here. So that's the callback function. Callback function is just the name of the function which we pass as an argument into another function, and it is executed after completing task, specifically asynchronous task. Simple as that. Without using callback functions, many asynchronous tasks and events cannot be handled, and that's why understanding how to work with callbacks is very important for managing tasks that do not complete immediately in the non-blocking or asynchronous manner. So that's the callback function. So what is a promise? A promise is an object which is able to hold the result of an asynchronous operation. In other words, promise is promise you to give you the result of the asynchronous operation or give you error. Now let me explain you promise with the example. First, we create promise and then we will see how we can consume that promise. It is really simple. So to create promise, we write new keyword and then promise. Now this promise is a class and it takes an argument which is function with two parameters. So here first parameter is resolve and second parameter is reject and arrow function. Now inside this function we write our asynchronous code. Here again we are assuming we are getting data from database. So we write here set timeout and pass function, callback function and 3000 milliseconds. Now imagine here we get our data from database. So I create one variable called student equals to object. Let's say ID to 1 and name to Harley. Now we write here resolve function because we successfully get the data and we pass here this student. Now let's store this promise in variable called PR for promise. I know this is little confusing, but don't worry, after completing this video, your doubts will clear. Now let's see how we can consume this promise. So we write PR, which is this variable, dot, and here we have two main methods, then and catch. Now when we create promise, it is by default in pending state, and if we complete the asynchronous task, then promise is in fulfilled state, and if there is an error, then promise in rejected state. Here our promise fulfilled because we call here resolve function. So when promise is fulfilled, then we get our data in this then method. Now we name our data as result parameter and then simply console this result. Save this and see, after 3 seconds we get this result. Now imagine here for some reason we don't get data from database. So here I create a variable called status and make it false. And here we add condition. If status is true, then we run this resolve function. Else we simply call here reject function. Now for better practice, every time we want to return error, we create a new error and pass our error message here. Save the changes and refresh the page. See, we get this error here. Now let's consume this error same as we get data in then method. So after this then method, we add another method called catch, and here we get error as parameter and simply console.log this error. Save this and see, we get that error here. And that's how we consume promise using then and catch method. So promises helps us manage asynchronous tasks like fetching data from a server or reading a file in more organized way. It starts in a pending state, then moves to either fulfilled or rejected. So in short, if our promise gets resolved, then this then method will run, and if our promise gets rejected, then this catch method will run. Simple as that. What is Async-await? Async-await is a way to write asynchronous code as synchronous code. By using Async-await, we can consume promises in much easier way. So this is the promise which we consume using then and catch method. But this code looks little bit complicated. So we can write this same code in much easier way using Async-await. Let me show you. So I comment out this then and catch method. Good. Now the thing about Async-await is we can only use Async-await inside the function. So for that, we have to create a new function called getStudent. And inside this function, we can consume promise using Async-await. So first of all, we write our promise variable, which is pr, and before that, we simply add await keyword. Now here we can see we are getting error, and it is telling us await expressions are only allowed within async functions. So to make our normal function as async function, we need to just write async keyword at the beginning of the function. And don't worry, our function will run the same as before. Just we can use await in this function. Now what is this await keyword do? This await keyword pause the execution of the async function until the promise is resolved or rejected. In simple words, it is telling our code, wait until the promise state change to resolve or rejected. Simple as that. So here what we get? Right, we get the data which we pass in the resolve function. So we can store it in variable called data. And let's simply console.log this data. Now let's call this getStudent function at the bottom. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our data. And that's it. This is async and await. It is used to simplify our code, so we can easily write and read our code. Now what if this promise return error? So we can change this status to false, which means this reject function will call. Now let's see how we can handle error in async-await method. So for handling error, we need to use try and catch method. It is also simple. Let me show you. So first of all, we add try, and in the curly brackets, we will move our code. Now if anything goes wrong in this try block, our code directly move to the catch block. So we add here catch block, and this catch block has one parameter called error. And yes, it is the same error which promise return in the reject function. So in the curly brackets, we can simply log this error. Now let's see this is working or not. See, here we get our error. So in simple terms, if any error occur in this try block, then this catch block will run. Now some students might ask, this seems like this await is blocking our code from running forward. And yes, it is true, but that is true only for this async function. Let me show you what I mean. So here, after calling this async function, I add one console line. This is asynchronous JavaScript. Now what do you think when this line will run? Will it wait for our promise to resolve? Let's see. See, here first we get this console message, and after that, when that function complete, then we get here message. So don't worry, Async-await is a way to write asynchronous code looks like synchronous code, but our code will work in asynchronous way. So that's how we consume promises in much easier way than this then and catch method. It's your choice which you want to use. They both works the same. It's totally up to you what you want to choose. And here our asynchronous JavaScript series is completed. I hope you learned from it. And also, currently I am working on the ultimate Node.js course in which you will learn Node.js from scratch to advanced level in very easy to explain language and with real world projects. So in the description box, I added one Google form link. Enter your email and first 1000 students will get this course completely free for lifetime. So quickly register, link is down in the description. And I will see you in the next video.